Okay, that's credits. That's credits. All right. Let's first. All right. Let's get out of that. Okay, so let's talk about the ups and downs of Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, shall we? So I'm playing the Final Fantasy games in order, except for the Final Fantasy VII adjacent stuff. So I've played 7, I've played all the remake stuff, I played Crisis Core, and I've also played Tactics. But outside of those, I'm playing them in order. So I've played 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all pixel remasters. And now I'm playing Mystic Quest because it came out between 5 and 6, and then I'll play 6 and yada yada. So with those under my belt, all the 7 stuff, Tactics, and 1 through 5 pixel remasters, which one do you think is my least favorite so far? It's freaking this one. It's not even close to as good, as creative, as interesting, story-wise, mechanics, RPG stuff, as any of those. Final Fantasy 1 runs circles around this one. Yeah, it's more basic when it comes to the story. It's about as basic when it comes to the story, but the RPG mechanics are more interesting, more complex and interesting than this game. This appears to... So I am aware that this game was designed... I think I read somewhere that this was designed by the developers as something that would get more layman, Western audiences interested in RPGs, right? So it's like a baby's first RPG. That is definitely what it feels like. They take so many things and just make them so basic. Like, you don't have random encounters in this game. You can't even walk around in the overworld. You just have a track that you can follow, kind of like Final Fantasy Tactics a little bit. So there's not really any exploration. The game it's not really linear because you do a lot of backtracking, but it's not an open world, overworld kind of a thing. Just like the attacks and your leveling and like what gear you have, it's all on rails. Oh, at this point in the game, as long as you open the chest, you get this weapon. Once you've past this point in the game, then they'll give you this shield, or it's in this chest or whatever. So the gear, there's no real loot grind or any like decisions to be made on gear. Except when you're fighting, there are certain enemies that are weak to axes, certain that are weak to swords, yada yada. But outside of that, I mean, it's just very straightforward. So it's not nearly as crunchy or satisfying when it comes to the RPG stuff as any of the Final Fantasy pixel remasters. So that it's got that going against it. Number 2, the story, like I said, the story is just bare bones basic. It's about as good as Final Fantasy 1. It's just the most basic. The characters aren't that interesting. It's just knowing... I mean, it's not... Just because they had to dumb down the RPG mechanics, they had to dumb down the story, too. I mean, this came out after 4 and 5. Final Fantasy 4 and 5 have incredible freaking stories. So, I don't understand that. It just feels a little lazy. And then the dungeons in this game, they're not hard. This game is not hard. I know I died 56 times, but honestly, that's just because there's not really any penalty for death in this game. If you die, there's just a sign that says try again, and you just start as if you had never done the fight before. So you just have unlimited tries, and like your cure spells will cure everybody to full. Your life spells bring everyone back to full HP. So I would just go into fights with like 100 HP and be like, well, whatever. If I die, I'll just, try again. So that's where my deaths came in. 75% of my deaths were because of like that. Sometimes I would get blindsided though, because in fights, they'll just sometimes, I mean, you basically are two-shotting every enemy except for bosses, right? But they're also doing that to you because they'll just have enemies will just have attacks where they just one-shot you, or they'll petrify you and you're dead, and they'll petrify both of you in the same turn. So that was kind of frustrating. The dungeons in this game are not hard, but they are long and arduous. It's just, you just gotta, there's no random encounters, so you just gotta go around killing all the creatures and trying to figure out how to, every major dungeon in this game is a maze. And in order to navigate the maze, you got to fight your way through the enemies that are on the board. And it doesn't take that long to do single fights, usually, but just getting through the dungeons takes forever, and it is boring. And then sometimes the fights do take forever because the enemies just heal themselves to full all the time. And so you got, once you figure out like who's supposed to attack with what and whatever, you can get through some of them fairly quickly. But sometimes you're just stuck in a random battle with some regular ass enemies because they just keep healing themselves to full, or they keep blinding you over and over, you know, that kind of thing. So it's not. Here's the problem. Here's the issue. I don't play a lot of classic JRPG, turn-based RPGs. I don't play a lot of them. They're not my favorite genre. Final Fantasy is the only genre I've decided it's the only genre it's the only franchise I'm actively playing. There are some other franchises like Suikoden, Chrono Trigger, and a couple others that it's like, I'm going to get to those someday, and I've played the first of them, and I like them, but this is the only, Final Fantasy is the only classic JRPG series that I'm trying to get through. And so the only ones that I've beaten are like the Final Fantasy games I've already gone over, and then like the original Chrono Trigger, the original Suikoden, basically the big boys, right? Like the big ones. I'm not out here playing random niche, like deep cut JRPGs. And so because of that, the only ones that I've beaten are like the titans of the genre. So yeah, this is easily my least favorite JRPG, classic JRPG I've ever beaten. And it's not even close, I don't think. This one's gonna rank, these games don't rank super high all the time anyway, because again, it's not my favorite genre. I tend to be a little impatient with them. I don't care as much about the story in these games as a lot of people do, so I don't get as invested, even when the story is really good. So this game is going to rank low, low, low. I still don't think it's horrible. I hesitate to say it was worth playing, but, you know, just to get a glimpse of, you know, what Mystic Quest is, I don't regret playing it. But, you know, if I'm thinking who would I recommend this game to? Even if you're brand new to JRPGs, and I want to introduce you to JRPGs, nowadays in 2024, there are so many great new JRPG style games that are great introductory games. Sea of Stars comes to mind. I mean, that's a great, not that hard, classic style JRPG that is absolutely freaking amazing. I'm not going to tell you to play this. This isn't going to get you in the door. It's, yeah, sure, it's not nearly as hard, but it's not nearly as fun either, even if you're kind of crappy at JRPGs like I am, you know? So at the end of the day, I think this is an interesting piece of history when it comes to Final Fantasy, but ultimately I see it as a misstep. And I haven't read any reviews, so I have no idea if I have no knowledge of whether people feel that way, but I have to assume that they do. And I've never heard anyone talk about this game. I've never read, like, oh, this is the Final Fantasy that really needs a remake that everyone's forgotten. I've never read anything like that. I assume that this game is thought of as a misfit. And I can't imagine I'm wrong. I'm still glad I played it, because I'm playing them all in order, and now I can say, like, I've done it. But I am glad to be done with this game. It is a slog. This game is a slog. Alright, I'll stop bashing it now. I still respect certain things about it, but even like the pixel art and music is like, it's like they put the C team or the B team Squaresoft people on this game. None of the stuff is as good. None of it's as good. Also, I'm playing this on an emulator. I've been playing the Pixel remasters with all the quality of life improvements and this being able to walk faster and skip battles and all that stuff for quality of life purposes and convenience. This doesn't have any of that. This is the original game. So that's plays into the slog too. It's like, I can't walk faster. I don't have any maps. I don't have any you know, any of that quality of life stuff, like the easier UI. It's all the old original shit, and it's rough. All right, I'll stop shitting on it, but I am glad I played it. But it is far and away my least favorite Final Fantasy game, and it's not even a competition. All right. Last couple orders of business. So the bottom center of the screen says that we've beaten 72 games in 2024 and 519 since we started doing this in 2020. Lies, all lies. We've now beaten 73 games in 2024 and 520 since we started doing this in 2020. Let's go. All right. You know, the last order of business is normally that I would say, hey, Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, it's been fun, but we're now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. But again, I'm playing this on emulator. It probably takes up like 5 megs. Or no, it's probably measured in kilobytes. So I'm not going to bother deleting it. We'll just say, Mystic Quest, I'm glad we got through you. But we are now going to say goodbye. Thanks for existing, I guess, a little bit.